Okay, welcome back to another episode of the Are You Strong podcast. I have another Rutgers athlete on the show today. And before I say her name, wait, I might need 10 minutes to read off her accolades, but I'm going to try and go quick for essence of time. I'm going to bring her back to high school where she was the 2020 Female Athlete of the Year. So we know she's not that old. Two-time all Chestnut team softball, two-time all area first team softball, two-time All-State honorable mention swimming, swimming and softball, crazy. Varsity softball captain, varsity swim team captain, which total leadership. Took her talents to Rutgers University right here in good old New Jersey, where she played softball. Right now, I don't know how she managed all this while playing softball, but on a softball scholarship, she was a president of the SAC, Student Athletic Advisory Committee. She ran the mental health and wellness. She was the vice president of the SAC for that department. She also was a SAC executive board member, and she created Rutgers Athletics' first Life After Sports panel. We want to get into that. Founded the first ever freshman student athlete mentorship program, which is well needed over there. She organized a mental health and suicide prevention program. Want to get deep into that. But then she graduates and goes to work for the Big Ten and starts working for an athletic development with 18 different institutions. Like, how do you manage that? Then worked for Scott Field Project as a chief operating officer.
Yep.
Okay. And led the Legacy Phase Initiative. It was facility redevelopment for youth athletes. But now, currently, this is really cool. The assistant athletic director for student athletic success at LaSalle University, focusing on athletic development, life skills, and career readiness and transition beyond sports. And she's a mother of a 1 year old daughter. Welcome to the show, Kayla Bock.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. As we were just saying earlier, I love, sharing my story and it lines up a lot with why I'm in the field of work that I am. Really just love giving back my time to people in general and just
Yeah.
connecting.
Well, before I ask you 1,000 questions, why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself? I know I just ripped off. I could have went on another 15 different things, but tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Well, first things first, I was just watching, I forget who you had on a couple weeks ago. She was battling some sinus stuff, so
Hmm.
if I sound a little sniffly, apologies there. It's still going around. But hello everyone. My name is Kayla Bock. I am Coatesville, Pennsylvania, born and raised about 45 minutes, making the joke it's now like an hour west of Philadelphia. Grew up here all my life, and now I'm currently back in the town that I grew up in, and we can get into that later. But as Jeff, as you mentioned, I was a swim and softball captain at Coatesville, super involved there now too, which we can dive into. Knew I wanted to play sports at the next level my whole life, but once I got into high school, really didn't know what I wanted to choose yet at all. I was still super invested in both, not only playing at the high school level, but doing the travel swim and the travel softball, So it's like go to school all day, go to swim practice right after school, and then drive to King of Prussia and play softball from 7 to 9 at night. Get home at 10:30 and maybe eat, hopefully shower, all that good stuff. Knew once I got to college and got to Rutgers that I wanted to stay in sports. So I did a ton of internships there in the athletic department, had a ton of great mentors that I still talk to this day, and took my talents to the Big Ten, worked for an amazing community and impact team there. Found out I was pregnant with my daughter once we moved out to Chicago. So all new things at once. I love it. I love fast-paced environments. So nothing I couldn't excel in, right? And now I am currently back in Coatesville, but I am working at LaSalle University and leading our student athlete development department and supporting nearly 600 athletes. So that's a short synopsis, I
And
guess.
you're only 24 years old.
Yes, just turned 24 in February. So
Getting all that done, like it's crazy. So let's go backwards a little bit.
yeah, for sure.
Growing up, I don't know if I've met too many people that are really good in two sports, let alone a sport where you're in the water and one where you're on the ground. When did that start? When did you realize swimming was going to be big for you and softball? And then while you're in high school, you're captain of both. How did you make that decision? Like, I'm going to go the softball route instead of the swimming route.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you talk about a land and a water sport because I've been told my whole life that I run like a swimmer, and I don't know if that was ever a compliment or, but no, I think, my dad was a really great athlete. My whole line of family on both sides are all Coatesville people. So, when the Bach name continued in 2016, people knew whose daughter I was. So I'll just say it that
It
way.
wasn't a shock.
No, it wasn't a
Yeah.
shock at all. So, my dad was a state champion swimmer, but he played a lot of sports in high school. He played a little bit of baseball, but was really talented at swimming. So, kind of, stuck to that. And baseball just kind of kept him busy. And he also ran track for a period of time too. But, he was very invested in swimming and his mom, my Nana, and everything. So, it was not a matter of how I got into swimming softball, but rather what I was told I was going to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Um, but I fell in love with both. I think, I credit swimming so much for my strength in softball and just my natural ability to be an athlete because I was, in high school, I was never injured. And if I was, it was maybe like a finger sprain somehow, some way, but, my body felt the strongest it ever was when I was swimming. And, I was doing the high school swim, the high school softball, but also, like I mentioned earlier, the travel, both on the travel side. And about my sophomore year, that's when the rules were a little bit different. So you started being able to talk to coaches and be recruited and that sort of thing. And I was starting to get some letters in the mail from swim, and softball. And I just said, I really got to make a decision and like hone in on one. So I made the choice to give up the travel swim, move to a better travel softball team, but still do it in high school and obviously still do it to the best of my ability. Just like my dad, I was a sprinter, freestyler. So I did our 2 and 4 free relays, and I was normally the anchor in our 2 free relay, and then also the 50 free, 100 free, sometimes 200 free, but that got really hard. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was crazy, and I think about now just, with how many practices we would have at Rutgers and how tired I would be and how I was just ever able to do anything I was in high school. Like, waking, sometimes we'd have swim before school, and then, that's 5:30 to 6:45, and then we're in class by 7:15 until 2:45, and then it's swim 3 to 5 again, and then I got to drive all the way 30 minutes and go to another travel softball practice from 7 to 9:30 at night, and then drive all the way back home and somehow get my homework done,
Yeah.
eat, shower, all the stuff.
And have
So
some sort of life in there too.
right, and some sort of social life. And that's why,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of my friends were athletes, obviously, because I was already with them
Yeah.
24/7. And, but that's where you make some of the best memories. And you meet, I'm still friends with two of the girls on my high school swim team. I'm actually the maid of honor at one of them's wedding
Good.
next March, so that's where you build the best relationships, I feel like, are the people, that you're playing sports with and that sort of stuff they stay around.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, so back to going off tangent, but yeah, so ultimately decided, I needed to stay in a lane, and I chose softball and really just invested in that. Like I said, invested in a better travel team with some better resources and that sort of thing. But
How'd your
you
dad
know,
handle
yeah, it's
it?
it created a lot of turmoil in our relationship. Honestly, he really dreamed of me, swimming at the next level, and he did go to the next level. He went to Clarion and then Indian
Mhm.
River Community College, which is a swimming hub. But unfortunately flunked out and didn't finish. So I'm technically a first gen
All
grad,
right. There you go.
which is a cool accolade in itself. But yeah, it created a lot of turmoil in our relationship, and I think until he saw how successful I became at Rutgers, not only just as that athlete, that I was, but also just as a young woman, I think, that's when our bond really started to mend. So and during high school, it was not fun all the time,
Yeah.
but I think, I'm a really big believer in everything happens for a reason, and I think, my path has been it's been crazy, but it's been exactly, where I've needed to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, so.
Now, did you have an option to swim at Rutgers too, or no?
No, no. So,
No.
I mean, I knew even, if I were I was a good swimmer, I was able to go to states on the relays and stuff, but I think not investing all of my energy in it too, like, it's just people, you know, when you're a swimmer, you're doing 3 a days,
Yeah.
like with your club, with high school, like there's no, that's a really serious sport, I feel like.
Yeah.
So, not being fully invested in it, I knew that there was no shot. So,
Yeah.
I didn't even entertain it. But I'll tell you what, like I wish I hopped in that pool a couple times just for my body's sake, because when I got to college, I was battling injury and just taping my
Yeah.
ankle up, and my poor trainer Zach, I was like, I can't miss a game, man. I can't miss a game. I can't miss a practice. We got to keep taping it up. But yeah, I mean, in high school too, like right when states was over with swim, I mean, softball trials were like the
Right there.
next weekend, so
Yeah.
just no break, just keep going. But I think that's also what kept me on track, and it, kept me on the straight and narrow, if you want to call it, and making sure I do good in school and
Yeah.
keep up with everything that I needed to.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think that the traditional, for lack of better words, student, right, or parent understands the structure that athletics gives to the student.
Hmm.
It's not just, hey, go to have fun. It's about
Yeah,
learning how to really follow a schedule, stick to a schedule, commitments, discipline, resilience, all of that on top of
absolutely.
going to school. And if you think about what you went through in high school, early morning swims, high school, afternoon swims, softball games at night, the typical average young student can't handle all that. It's
Hmm.
just a lot.
Yeah.
And then you go on to become a captain in both sports. Talk about that, from a leadership perspective, because you've been a leader your entire, well, from high school going forward till now. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything you've touched has been leadership type stuff. So talk about how that being a captain of two sports helped develop you as a leader when you were that young.
Yeah, I think before I fully, divulge into that, I was listening to a podcast, and I forget the woman's name, but she worked in the Secret Service, and she was the head of whatever detail was happening, and she talked a lot about how she never demanded respect, but it was always earned. And she
Uh,
talked about going um to this specific detail, and the guy on the other end that, whatever, worked at the facility, he acknowledged everyone in her crew but her. And she didn't say a word about it. She didn't yell in his face and be like, do you even know who I am, kind of thing. She just kind of let it go. And then, when the president at the time was like, this is who my point of contact is for everything, he went right up to her and shook her hand and was like, thank you, I'm sorry, kind of thing, so
yeah,
she talked a lot about that, and that resonated a ton with me because I feel like even growing up, I never demanded that I was the leader. I think it really came out. And I think people just respected me. Like I earned their respect and their trust. I think trust is a big part of it too, because I really tried to make it a point that not only was I a good leader on the field and or the pool and did all the right things, but I was just a good leader in life. And, whether someone was calling me because they broke up with their boyfriend or their girlfriend, or, they're having troubles at home and they need somewhere to stay, I was kind of just always that go-to person for people, whether, it was a best friend or just an acquaintance kind of thing. So, I think from a young age, it really gave me a lot of perspective of how powerful my voice is and how powerful the things that I do are. We talked a lot about being a person of influence too, at Rutgers a lot. So I think that also really resonated with me because, how are you getting your people that are super negative minded and maybe talk a lot about the coach and the training and just, can't get out of the funk. And then you have your people that are just super positive every day and yes, sir, yes, ma'am. But what are we doing with those people that are in the middle and they're teetering on the line of being super negative or teetering on the line of being super, super positive. And I think I was one of those influencers too, growing up that could be friends with those people that were super negative, but not let
Yep.
it really get to me and get them to be positive so that we could all reach the common goal, which is winning games, winning meets, all that stuff.
So you had a knack of helping people change the way they think,
Yeah,
and the way they
absolutely.
look at things.
For sure.
So did you know, did you like, I don't want to say foresee it, but did you have this feeling that, hey, no matter where you went, you were going to constantly be in a leadership type role?
Yeah, I mean, in high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I think growing up, every kid that plays sports is like, I want to go professional or I want to go to the Olympics. And I think, once I got to high school is when women's sports were really on the rise. So I know that could potentially be a path if I, wanted to pursue it. But I also think once I started to meet my athletic director in high school and talk to him and meet athletic directors in different roles and positions at Rutgers and really just that's where I found my knack for wanting to be in sports and work in sports and support student athletes. So I knew that I would be in charge of something someday, even just working with Scott Field Project. We talked earlier about how sports keep parents, keep sports on the straight and narrow. I think I just like word vomited, but you know what I'm saying?
Yep, yep,
Sports keeps kids on the straight and narrow, right?
yep,
And that's kind of the whole point of Scott Field Project is to keep those kids off the streets and give them a space where they can just thrive and get away kind of from the noise and better themselves physically and mentally. So when I became involved in that, I really saw a different aspect for my community because I was once living it every day. I mean, I was just talking about this earlier, like some of the best athletes at Coatesville were some of my best friends and they were just at the wrong place at the wrong time and
mhm,
that was that and I prided myself a lot on not succumbing to that life and um making it out and now being back but being involved in a different lens and
yeah,
supporting kids that you know could potentially be in that frame too. So
yeah. It's great. So when did you realize Rutgers was going to be the spot? What was the recruiting process like there?
I really didn't know that Rutgers really existed, to be honest. And that's not a knock at all. Because I really wasn't looking aggressively when playing softball in terms of recruiting. I was just kind of seeing who was contacting me, and I got, most of the local Philly schools and stuff. And then obviously, Penn State reached out and at first that was like, wow, like I would love to play for my home state and all that sort of stuff. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Young Brothers, but they're from Coatesville and Aaron and Avery, they played at Rutgers and I remember when things didn't really shake out as good as I wanted to with Penn State, I was like, I need to pour into Rutgers because that's going to be the rivalry game. Um, and statistically, I haven't looked this up, but I know if you look it up, every time we played Penn State has probably been my best series at Rutgers across all 4 years that we played them. So, it definitely was personal every single time. But some of my favorite memories have happened at those games. Um, but yeah, once Aaron really put Rutgers on my radar, I was super invested and reached out. And one of the assistants at the time, they came to my very last game of the fall, my junior year, and when I was walking up to my at bat, I saw them out of the corner of my eye, and I really just had to like take a moment and take a deep breath and really just stay locked into the at bat because, when you see coaches out recruiting you that you
Stressful.
invited,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like
yeah.
I need to perform or
Talk about pressure.
my dreams are over.
Yeah.
Just no rationale.
So what
Um,
happened?
I hit a home run. It was
All right.
great. So it worked out. It was a crazy at bat. I think it was like a 9 or 10 pitch at bat. I just kept fouling off pitches. It was like a full count. So it's either I'm getting walked or I'm striking out
Now,
or
was it
I'm
a
getting
home
a
run?
hit.
Was it a home run you hit over a fence, or the home run there was no fence and the ball kept rolling?
Oh
You hit a
no,
run.
we had a
All
fence.
right.
So yeah, dead center. And it's funny because the picture that was taken when I hit that home run, you can see both Rutgers coaches in the background. So it was almost like some foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I still look at the picture all the time and I'm just like, wow, like who would have known that I would have ended up there and this girl that's stressed um, as crap going into this at bat just,
Do you
got
remember
offered
what
a
you were thinking?
scholarship.
What you were thinking running around the bases? You remember that or no?
I don't even remember what I was thinking. I was just overcome with so much joy.
Yeah.
And, when you hit a home run, you see it everywhere. Even in tennis, my sisters are playing tennis. It's such a different world now. All the girls are surrounded by home plate and they're just, waiting for you to get back.
Yeah.
And, I was just locked in on them like the whole time. And that's like my favorite part about hitting a home run is just,
Yeah.
who's grabbing your helmet and shaking
Yeah.
you and all that stuff. And then I was playing third base at the time and I remember just booting this ball with my foot. I mean, because again, I'm just so nervous and I booted it and somehow was able to palm it and still throw it and get the girl out. So that was a joke that the coaches made kind of once I got to campus and stuff. But but yeah, it was those were good memories and I'm pretty sure it was that same weekend, Coach Butler called me and said, "Hey, we want to get you up here for a visit, and would love to have you." So, sure enough, me, my mom, my dad went up there, and that weekend, I got offered a scholarship, and I think in that moment I knew I was exactly where I needed to be. I really
Yeah.
just fell in love with it and I think that's the theme of anybody that's ever done a visit at Rutgers and maybe didn't know about them too well is everybody just falls in love with it.
Yeah.
The coaches they knew Coach Butler knew that I'm a big football fanatic so Coatesville High School football is a really big deal and I was in charge of our student section so I was at every game and all that stuff
Yeah.
and I didn't even go to the softball field first. I went to the football field and football stadium.
Yeah.
So they were calculated, but who's not when they're trying to get kids to go to their school.
Yeah.
So
So how did your parents feel about that, knowing that their daughter got offered a scholarship?
yeah, I mean, again, like alluded already to kind of the turmoil and the issues that me and my dad faced going through high school and how hard it was for him to kind of just adjust his mindset into me being my own person. Um, but I just remember, and my mom wasn't fortunate enough to go to college. She had to raise her brother, and she started working from a really young age and stuff. So they were just so proud of me. And my parents divorced when I was 10, so you know, just them being in the same room again for me meant so much. And
Yeah.
I think that was the first time that they were really able to put their differences aside and just like thank each other for, because I wouldn't have made
Yeah.
it here without either of them. And um that was the first time I think that they, started mending their broken
Yeah.
relationship and we're just super grateful to be in that position for sure.
Yeah.
So
And the great thing about being at Rutgers, you're not that far away from home, so they can come watch the games.
correct. And that was a huge part. I knew I always wanted to play in the Big Ten. Like obviously Penn State was my first choice, had reached out to kind of all, the ones in the immediate area. Um, and yeah, like my dad remarried and had two more little girls, Irish twins, so they're turning 9 and 10, so we're 16 years apart, roughly. And yeah, like once they were born, it was just, I knew I had a real opportunity to do something good with my life, really, at that
Yeah.
point. And, I didn't have any siblings growing up, so really no one to look up to other than the older kids, on the teams that I was playing for. And, it was really, really important to me that, I stayed really active in their lives. And,
Right.
every single home series, like they were there. They were in the outfield going crazy. I would see them like running back and forth on the hill and taking their scooters and just
Yep.
going like straight down into the fence. And we would all like coaches and all the girls, we'd all just crack up and laugh. I'm like, yep, they're here. Um, so and now, they're playing tennis softball, they're swimming, they're doing everything that I was doing, but they want to do it because Big Sis did it,
That's
and I
great.
can I can only hope and pray that they go bigger than I did.
Well, you can't get much bigger.
Thanks.
You know what I mean? It
Thank
can't
you.
get any bigger than Big Ten softball. How much bigger does it
Yeah,
get?
I know. I mean, and just, everything I think that I've done with my life too, I think they look up to.
Yeah,
They talk about, when how many football tickets I've been able to get them and stuff, and just how fun that is for them. And when I work at the Big Ten, my dad is just like such a sports fan.
yeah,
So I've been able to go to a lot of different campuses when I worked with them, and I'd send him pictures of all the football fields and just all the local food and like everything.
yeah,
And he every time he'd just be like, "Wow," he was like, "This is so cool. I'm so happy for you." And even now, just working at LaSalle, like, they've been dying to, I know basketball season just wrapped up, but definitely next year gonna get them out to some games um and that sort of thing. So
yeah.
they just think I'm like so cool.
They can they can
It's
live
nice.
vicariously through you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, you know.
Everybody is benefiting, and my dad, we always make the joke. He's like, "Hey, can you give me a t-shirt?" It's like anywhere that I am, he's like, "Hey,
Yeah,
can you give me a t-shirt?" So he's got so many different, big impact
yeah.
and LaSalle shirts and
It's
everything.
so funny you
So I
say that
take
because
care of him.
I do the same thing with hats. If my kids or something like, okay, get me a hat, get me a hat. Come
Yeah.
on, Dad, just get me a hat.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
love that. I do
Yeah,
that with lapel pins.
yeah. There you go.
So, yeah, so
That's great.
I have a huge collection of those.
Well, it sounds like, everything that you're talking about, everything sounds perfect, but nothing's perfect. So,
No.
so talk about, you leave high school, you go to Rutgers. Now you show up, you're 18 years old. There's girls on the team that might be 22, 23, you
Hmm.
know. I mean, who knows what with COVID and stuff, how many years they can be playing. But
Yeah.
what was that like walking on campus as a freshman? Was it culture shock? Was it oh my God, these girls are incredible? Like what was that transition like?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of why I wanted to go to Rutgers too was to play for Coach Butler. She had been there, I think, for going into her third or fourth year when I had come into campus, so there's still girls from the previous coach on the team and, really just trying to build a culture. And I knew at the end of the day I wanted to go somewhere that didn't have championship trophies and rings and all these things. Like I wanted to be a part of building a legacy, and I think that's exactly what I did. And um, coming off, talked about COVID, right? So, 2020, my senior softball season was taken away from me, at high school. And, I was projected to be the Daily Local Player of the Year and surpass my 100 hits and my 100 RBIs and, all these amazing milestones that seniors look forward to. I mean, even just like senior prom, and
Yeah,
everything was just done. So I ended my senior career essentially on swim, so that was interesting. So I think I was just really excited to get to Rutgers, just to get somewhere else in general and a change of
yeah,
scenery, because everybody's just in the house and, I just needed a change of pace. But, it was just athletes and I think like pharmaceutical students on campus, nursing students on campus. So it was like a ghost town. And we were all living on Livingston, where Jersey Mike's,
yeah,
formerly the rack, was, and all of our training facilities and stuff. So, um, it was a weird time. And I think, but it was like some of the best times too. There was 9 rooms, two to a room, all softball girls, all in the same hallway. So we
yeah,
were in and out of each other's rooms all the time. We got super, super close. And I think, we didn't see a lot of success my senior year, sorry, my freshman year. And that's also when the Big Ten announced too that we were only in conference. So you think of other conferences like the SEC and the ACC and stuff that are still resuming normal play, and that affected, I think, the entire Big Ten softball teams in general because
yeah,
you're not seeing different style pitching and different talent from across the country. It's kind of all Midwest at that time, Northeast, that sort of thing. And I think once some of our teams got to the postseason, we were knocked out like pretty quick.
yeah,
Because we just weren't seeing
yeah,
different style opponents, different
yeah,
playing schemes. So yeah, I was just so excited to be away, to be somewhere different. And I think I came in with a chip on my shoulder and just kind of knew that, I was going to prove myself and I was blessed to receive the starting spot, my freshman year and I made sure that I capitalized on that and I was in the cage every night. There's nothing else to do. All classes are online, so I was in the cage every single night for at least an hour by myself or with somebody else. Really just trying to use my time wisely and take advantage of the opportunity I was given. So
I mean, how many people, young freshmen, start
it's tough. It's tough wherever you go. It's tough if you go Big Ten. It's tough if you go SEC, ACC, JUCO. Doesn't matter. It's
anywhere?
it's tough. It's a
Yeah,
grind. Everyone coming in is just as good as you, if not better.
yeah.
So. But I I don't like to lose. I don't like being told no. So I really made it a point to do the best that I could to get to that position for sure.
Awesome. So you come into college sports at the weirdest time this country's ever seen.
Hmm.
And over what they say, we haven't had something like that happen in 120 years or more.
Something
You know,
crazy. Yeah.
nuts. And no one's used to that. No one's expecting that. What kind of let's just forget the sports side. What kind of mental challenges did you face as an individual as well as a teammate under all those crazy circumstances that and everything you had to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there was really nothing to do other than hang out with each other or practice. And I mean, yeah, schoolwork, but everybody's trying to adjust to the online model, so it was very relaxed environment, I feel like. Um, but yeah, I just like trying to put myself back in that headspace. It was just softball, 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 softball. And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but then come sophomore year when, everything's resuming as normal and campus is lively again and all these things, when softball didn't start to go well, it seemed like the world was ending. Um, so I think that was like my only focus and I wasn't truly affected really in that moment during, the height of COVID, but kind of after everything had wrapped up because of what my mindset was being so driven on sport and being that athlete, it then took a toll in the years, to come and just, how I'm battling with my identity and that whole concept around being more than just an athlete,
Yeah.
which is what I preach now to the athletes that I
Yeah.
work with and all that kind of stuff. But
Can you drive that now? The whole identity thing for athletes. I coined a phrase, I say this on almost every show, that athletes die twice.
mm,
When their game is over, they're no longer playing, they die. That
hmm
identity's gone, but they got to live with it.
yeah.
And then they die in real life, and it's we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, it was I feel like I was in a unique position. I feel like a lot of athletes kind of face that identity crisis once, they
Yeah.
walk across that stage and it's done. Um, but I really faced mine like sophomore, junior year. I started God bless her, Carrie Locke, still my mentor and my friend to this day.
Yeah.
She got me an internship in the marketing department with PJ Mullen. They do such a fantastic job. It's been awesome to see how much they've grown since I was an intern. But that was my first official internship. And, I started putting in more internship hours and trying to learn from professionals. And then those nights at the cage started to dwindle and my playing time started to dwindle, and I was seeing kind of like, the cause and the effect. And I was just like, if I'm not playing my sport, like, who am I? Because every time
Yeah.
you walk into a room, it's like, hi, I'm Kayla Bock, I play softball. Um, that's been my whole life, right? Or the swimmer, and again, started really investing in my career and figuring out what I wanted to do. And I like collapsed. I was just crying a lot and, wasn't going out with friends and was just super in my head a lot. That's also when I found SAC, the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and became invested in that as well and started meeting athletes on different teams and hearing a little bit about their stories. And, you know, after sophomore year, I moved back home sophomore year summer and kind of did a lot of self-reflecting. That's when I got really involved with Scott Field Project and understood that there's more to me than just sport. But still worked really hard and trained when I was home, and then came back junior year and hit the ground running, and was able to see a lot of success from then on. And I think when it comes to a senior season, I ended it how any senior would dream of. I mean, getting the call that February right before we were about to play opening weekend and being asked if I wanted to take a position at the Big Ten. Then to, if you want to talk about stats, like finishing in a good place and just as a team, we finally built what we felt like was a culture that could last there. Um, and being one of the best teams in Rutgers softball history. I mean, we went into the Big Ten tournament seeded third. It didn't work out, unfortunately, but it was just, I think, again, like everything happens for a reason,
Yeah.
and I think I needed to go through all of that to be exactly where I am now, supporting these athletes and having them, come into my office and be like, I don't know who I am, I don't know what to do, and
Yeah,
I can
been there,
just
done
see,
that, right?
yeah, I can just see myself like sitting in Carissa or Carrie's office and
Yeah.
just being like, please help me,
Yeah.
so.
But do you ever reach out to them and kind of talk about that with them? Like, hey, I'm now you, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Yeah, I mean, me and Carrie talk at least like once a month. I'm actually going to see her on Monday since we have off
Well, tell her I
from
said
work.
hello.
I will for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's been amazing for me. Like I immediately once I was involved with SAC, I was like, I want to be like her, and I talked to Carissa a lot from the sense of being a mom too. So she's been great with that as well. But yeah, it's just I always give credit when credit is due, and I pride myself a lot on relationships. My friends, every time like I walk into a room, they're like, "How the heck do you know this person?" Like, or someone talks about a specific school, and they're like, I'm like, "Oh, I know somebody there. Like, let me reach out for you." And they're like, "Hi," like, but I talk a lot about intentionality and not just reaching out to someone when you need something, but just reaching out to say thank you or to check in on their family or wish them a happy holidays, just a little goes a long way. And
Yeah.
that's exactly how I got my job at the Big Ten. And that's a funny story that we can get into if you want as
Yeah.
well.
Well, before the Big Ten was the SAC,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
you don't just decide, hey, I'm gonna, be part of this. You decide to run the whole damn thing.
For
Talk
sure.
about that.
Had to.
You grow up, you grow through it to become the president of it. What inspired you to do that, and what does that look like? Because I know what the program is. Most people might not, but it's tough enough just to be in it, let alone run it. So
Yeah,
talk about that a
for
little
sure.
bit.
Yeah, so my sophomore year, I was just a SAC rep for the softball team. So I think the common language around SAC across institutions is just it's the leadership group of athletes that bridges the gap between us and the athletic department and administration, So um, the whole idea around we can't know if we can't help. So it was a time to whether you're not getting fed properly or whether facilities aren't up to par or whether you're getting too many parking tickets, because that was a huge thing at Rutgers. Like that was a time to bring up those concerns, but it also was a time to intermingle with other teams and get to know other people, maybe do some sort of workshop and learn something new that you could bring back to your team. Those when you're just a rep for your team, you're the primary point of contact for, if you want to get your team involved with community service or, you know, um, inform them of any events coming up, whether it's yoga or a networking night or, anything going on in the athletic department that's not just your sport related. So, I really just I loved it so much and I wanted to learn more. So that's when I ran for the VP of Mental Health and Wellness. Worked alongside one of my other great mentors, Kate Hickey,
Hmm.
um, with that department, and she helped me champion the suicide prevention training. And we did that and got a lot of amazing feedback. And um, through that, we also continued to do yoga sessions. So not all teams were able to put yoga into their budget, but the teams that did really benefited from it. So we did all athlete sessions at least once a month throughout the entire year. Oh, oh.
You got a visitor.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. She's like, "Where's mommy?"
I know she wants to hang out. She likes to yap too. Um, but yeah, so we did the yoga sessions and that was a great hit. And I was in a leadership role, but I think, I still wanted more. I was still searching for more. And that was when me and Carrie became really close. And she said, "Hey, like, have you given any thought about running for president? Like, the current president, she's graduating. Like, what are your thoughts?" And I was like, I didn't really give it any thought, but I knew I still wanted to gain more, and I think, it lined up perfectly. And uh yeah, I wanted a couple of my ideas coming in were the freshman mentorship program, which I'm not sure if they kept that around, but when we ran it, my year, it seemed pretty good. That was something I learned from going to the Big Ten SAC meetings, and just learning from other institutions, which was such a fun experience.
Yeah,
Um, and then my prize possession and child was the Life After Sport panel, which Carrie actually just texted me yesterday and asked if I wanted to sit on it this year. And I was
that's
like,
great.
wow, such a full circle moment,
Yeah.
and I'm
So
sure
you
that's gonna
created it
come
now,
up.
and now you're
Yeah.
going to sit on it.
Yeah, I
That
know.
is
So
awesome.
I can't wait to that's gonna, it
Yeah.
hasn't hit yet that
Yeah.
that I've done that, but yeah.
How about Ryan Cassidy? Wasn't he involved with you on that too? Football
Um
guy?
Yeah, Ryan. So I think he was president when I was a freshman. So our
Okay.
paths never crossed because you
Okay.
had to be a sophomore to join SAC. But I know he was super involved with the Big Ten too when
Yeah.
he was a student athlete at Rutgers. So I heard
Yeah.
his name quite a bit.
He interned for me for one summer, 2019, I think it was. Then
Okay.
he was on this show too.
Oh,
You know,
nice.
and
Cool.
his story is phenomenal. He's gone on to do some really cool things too.
Yeah.
You know.
But but yeah, so I mean, again, just seeing the stuff that I was able to leave legacy wise that wasn't just,
Yeah.
athletics driven, but that whole idea just of being more than
Yeah.
an athlete and using your resources, I
Yeah.
think it was amazing.
So you named some pretty powerful women who have come through the Rutgers world.
Oh yeah.
Can you put your finger on maybe one thing that it's just that you've learned from all of them?
Oh man. Yeah, I think there's no right way to anything. There's especially this business of college athletics that we're in.
Yeah.
There's everybody has taken a different path and still, are in these leadership roles, and that's kind of always what has kept me going, and I can think of another powerful name, Diana Sabu. She's currently at Maryland right now, but she was at the Big Ten, and that's where her and I's paths crossed when I was there as an intern. So she was at Ohio State, early on in her career and really poured into the athletic director there, and that's kind of what got her start. And it's all about who you know and when
Yeah.
you know them and when everybody's paths are crossing. But talk about not the right way, that some other people, climb the corporate ladder. Like she was one of the women that really stuck out to me of and just inspired me to just keep going even when people tell you no. So
That's great.
yeah, yeah.
You know, and now you got all the young women looking up to you,
Yeah,
you
yeah. I
know?
mean, obviously among them, my sisters, which is like most
Yeah.
important to me, and having a 1-year-old daughter now, being able to tell her, one or just show her one day that
Yeah.
you can do it all, you can have it all, and I was thinking about that phrase, you can have it all, and um the other day, and just thinking of how I'm balancing everything right now because this is like the height of our crazy year with graduation and we do an award ceremony for the athletes at LaSalle and stuff. So just we just did a field day with our elementary school. So just a lot of like large scale events happening like
Yeah.
all within a month of each other. It's great. It's great. It's why I do what I do. Thriving in chaos. I learned
Yeah.
that transferable skills, that's what we talk about.
Organized
Um,
chaos.
Yeah, it's organized chaos. And it's like I do have it all, but there's always going to be a sacrifice. Like I have the family support. I have the dream job and all these things, but there's instances where, I can't go out to a happy hour and mingle with some coaches that might help me out later down the line when I'm trying to reach out to them because I have a question, and just build that relationship with your coaching staff or other administrators because I have to go pick up my daughter from daycare, right? Or
Hmm.
whoever's watching her. But then on the flip side, it's like I get to go pick up my daughter and she just took her first steps, but
Yeah.
now I'm not there. Um, so again, I feel like you can have it all, but there's definitely gonna be sacrifice and I think that's okay.
I always say that it's people talk about balance, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't think anyone ever has balance. If you're out of
No,
balance one way to, like you said, you're picking up your daughter, you're missing the other stuff. You're
right.
with the other stuff, you're missing you're out of balance, but you're in balance towards wherever you're at,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And that's where you got to
100%.
look at things. It's just nothing's perfect.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
for
So
sure.
so you go to Big Ten. Talk about that experience,
Yeah.
What did that teach you about athletic development? Because that's where you're at. That's your career. What did that
Mm-hmm.
teach you?
Yeah, so I mean, to rewind it back even further, Carrie had championed me to go to the first ever Women Leadership Summit that they did. I believe that was my sophomore year summer. So I went out to Chicago with her, and went to that with some other student athletes and the commissioner at the time, Kevin Warren. I remember seeing him in the room and I just said to Carrie, I was like, I feel like I should just go up and talk to him and just introduce myself. He seems like an approachable guy, and he 100% is. And she was like, you know what? Do it. Like she was in my corner. And sure enough, I walked right up to him. I said, "Hi, Kevin. My name is Kayla. I'm a student athlete at Rutgers. I'm really involved in SAC. Thank you so much for having us, that sort of thing." And he just kind of asked me the question like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" That sort of thing. And I said, "I know I want to work in sports and give back to the student athlete community, that I'm currently in." And sure enough, he was like, "You know what? Let's hop on a phone call when you get back to school in the fall
Yeah.
and let's talk about potential opportunities here." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." It was like a fangirl moment, It
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
it was crazy. So, sure enough, get back to campus in the fall, have a great conversation with him. He offers me an internship right off the bat. So, um, kind of they had some sort of like fellowship program going on, but they were kind of trying to bring back internships and I was basically the guinea pig. So I was working in eventually what I found out working in events and ops and what is now community and impact student athlete development. Um, so continue on. Going into spring training February, our plane lands in Florida, and I get the ESPN notification, Kevin Warren to be the CEO of the Bears, and I'm immediately like, oh shit, what does this mean for me? Because nothing is signed, dated, nothing. But I immediately reach out to Kevin and I just say, the Bears gained a good one. Congratulations. Looking forward to seeing your success. Thank you for all you did for the conference. And, he immediately responded and said, "Thank you so much for the kind words. I'll make sure that we honor everything." And, I wasn't even looking for that. But
Yeah.
again, like going back to that whole thing on respect, like he saw me at face value and, uh, and honored that,
Yeah.
and he didn't have to do that. So after that, I worked with Salvik Patel, who's head of people and culture now, and he helped me kind of shake everything out. And we're communicating like once a month, and he's like, "I don't know what's happening, but we want to get you." And sure enough, it all worked out. I went out there summer of my going into my senior year, so junior year summer technically. Uh, did the events and ops, so did the football media day, the volleyball media day, which was just so cool and amazing, and got to see a different aspect of sports, the sports administration world that I, didn't know about at the time. Met my former boss, Omar Brown, who's now head of community and impact, and got to do the Big Life Series trip to Selma, Alabama, which I mean, it's incredible. Like there's videos on YouTube that kind of recap the trip and they're amazing, but they don't do it justice. And I think, I've been counting 3 times and every single time I either learned something new or just developed a new perspective and appreciation. Um, and Yeah, and again, like just stayed intentional with my communication, made sure I kept reaching out, not to be calculated, but because I care.
Yeah.
And sure enough, they were kind of doing some realigning at the conference with departments, and Savik called me February before opening weekend and said, "Hey, we have a coordinator position open on the community impact team. You'd be reporting to Omar. Would you like to accept?" And I said immediately, "Yes, thank you very
Yeah.
much. No questions asked. This is amazing." So yeah, and then getting there. So the weekend before that is when I found out I was pregnant. So moving across the country, finding out I'm going to be a mom, and starting my first ever really like career, full-time career. It was a whirlwind of emotions. But I think I had such a great support system, from Omar and our community impact team, Maya and Ariana, uh, that really just helped me stay calm and
Yeah.
just, trust that, although my family is miles and miles away, that they kind of have my back. And we've all truly developed like a friendship and not just a work relationship. And I'm so grateful for that. Um, but yeah, all in all, I just got to see so many different sides of sports, and really that's what led me to wanting to do the community and impact stuff, and
Yeah.
obviously why they called for that specific job, because they knew that I was giving my all into all those things. And some of the stuff that I worked on with an intern came to fruition when I was there as an employee. One of the things was um, the Student Athlete Leadership Council that they have now. Issues Commission is the correct name. Apologies. Um, but again, just like another kind of layer of SAC. So you have the Issues Commission, which is one rep from every single institution, so 18 athletes. And then after that, there's another four, which are basically like your executive board, as you would like an institution SAC. So worked on that a lot with Ariana, and we got things moving, and we're able to get it solid. And it's been so awesome watching that grow. Another thing that I worked on literally my first week of work, and I remember Omar, he's a jokester, but he always told me, he said, "Listen, you don't need to boil the ocean, okay?" And I was like, "But I'm just ready, like
Yeah.
I've been waiting to get here." And uh, the now inaugural Jackie Robinson Community and Impact Award, which Omar tells me is like one of the like most prestigious awards at the Big Ten now, aside from like the Medal of Honor. But Commissioner Petiti is a big community guy, coming off with an MLB background, and they do a lot in their communities. So he really helped a ton with the Jackie Robinson naming rights and all that sort of stuff. And when he saw that I was working on this project, he was like, "Let's go. Like, I want something like this." So immediately, like, got it moving, and now seeing it going on its second year. Had a lot of football players get it this year, awarded it. So, a lot of airtime on like Big Ten Network,
Yeah.
CBS, and Fox and stuff. And it's just been so cool. I mean, it's like bittersweet because I'm not there anymore,
Yeah.
but, like I'm still in like our community impact group
Yeah.
chat, and they'll text updates all the time. And, I remember Omar and Maya calling me when they did the huge celebration for the first time for the overall winners. And, they just said thank you. And I like, I'm like pregnancy hormones. I'm like starting to cry. But that was one of the first moments where I was like, I know that I can really change some things in the college athletic landscape in terms of, how we're supporting our student athletes and how we're recognizing them, and
Yeah.
giving them, awards that they deserve. And yeah, it's just awesome.
A
It's
lot.
just such fulfilling
It's,
stuff.
so I think it all starts out with courage. You had the courage to walk up to that guy and say, "Hey, hello." And man, if you didn't do that, how would things be different, right?
Right. Yeah, it's like when all these younger, professionals reach out to me for like informational interviews, like stuff that I was doing too, and ask for my story. I'm like, you're never gonna get that. You're never gonna believe this one,
Yeah.
and it's just, but again, like going back to those powerful women we talked about, all their paths were so extremely different,
Yeah.
and now so is mine, and
But I
I
think they
think
all have
that's
one
the
thing
beauty
in
about it.
common. One thing in common is
Ooh.
courage. They all have the courage to go outside their comfort zone a little bit, right?
Yeah, 100%, 100%, and
And they have the
yeah.
courage to encourage other people to do it too.
And that's what being a woman in sports is about. We talk about all the time is who are you bringing into the room? And that's not just for women to do, that's for men to do too. And I think my former boss did a great job of doing that for me early on in my career to now where taking the next step at LaSalle into a bigger administrative role where, I'm still reporting to someone, but he's trusting in me now to lead a whole unit of student athlete development. And uh it's I was really nervous at first. I was like, am I really equipped for this? But um kind of looking back on all my trainings rather from not just a professional at the Big Ten and everything I learned there, but just again going back to being that student athlete and just being used to that grind and that mindset of like I will. I think that's what's continued to keep me grounded in this ever-changing landscape of, when I start to doubt myself a little bit and being like, am I really cut out for this? And
Yeah.
am I really doing the right thing? And then I get a text from an athlete at like 10 o'clock at night, and they're like, I just want to tell you, thank you so much. You've
Yeah.
done so many great things for LaSalle. And I'm just
Those
like,
are the best.
that's my why,
Yeah.
because I was them
So,
at one
so
point.
how did LaSalle happen? I mean, some people are probably sitting there like, well, how did she get that job? Like, how do
Yeah.
you at such a young age? How did she get that job?
Yeah, I mean, they had hundreds of applicants for it, so just being blessed among all things to even be on, the panel of people selected to interview. But going back to everything I've been talking about, being intentional with my connections and, people knew the person that I'm reporting to now, and they reached out to him and he jokes with me to this day now working there for nearly 6 months and he's like, I didn't even have to call your references because so many people freaking called and
Yeah.
emailed me
Yeah.
that like it didn't even matter. Like this job basically was for you to lose.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't nail the interview, we were shocked,
Yeah.
So
So you were a student athlete, and now you help student athletes,
hmm
and that's going to be your focal point going forward for hopefully for tons of time.
absolutely.
But from where you're sitting today, the athletic space has changed so much. The pressure
Absolutely.
these kids are under is ridiculous. The money,
hmm
the stress, you know, from where you're sitting and watching the young men and women today, what kind of things are jumping out that these young kids are facing today that maybe they didn't face in the past, that or maybe no one knew about it?
Yeah, I mean, specifically speaking from, I guess a LaSalle perspective, what drew me to LaSalle initially was how small of a school it was. I forget what our exact numbers are, but I kind of alluded to just about like 600 athletes when you include our spirit teams, 24 different programs. So and my current boss, he had this quote. He said, LaSalle is a school that continues to punch above their weight consistently, and I 100% think that that is true. Again, like small school with 24 programs and spirit teams, like
Yeah.
let that sink in. But our athletic body makes up. I mean, if I had to just throw a percentage on it, I'd say like it's 70-30, 60-40 maybe.
Hmm.
So athletics is really driving attendance there and um I talk about under-resourced, underfunded, all these things that I'm not used to seeing,
Hmm.
coming obviously from the conference level, coming from a Big Five, Big Four school, but that never intimidated me moving forward because the first thing that I thought was it's time to develop a new skill set. It's time
Yeah.
to add to the arsenal, add to the resume, right? So, we do a lot of grant writing and those certain things, and it's it's challenging. It's been super challenging, but it's been so rewarding because I'm learning so much new stuff. I've put in a position that someone my age probably really would not get without the support of her former colleagues and peers. And again, just seeing the immediate positive feedback from all of these athletes that I'm working with, it has been it's been so incredible, and it's like I said, it's really kept me grounded when those doubts start to creep in of, am I doing the best that I can? Am I doing enough? All those things. So I think, at LaSalle specifically, I think, it's trying to give the best that we can for our athletes, but also being realistic and making sure, we're staying up with budgets and, looking for different kinds of grants to do different sorts of things for them and that sort of thing. But I think in general too, just across the country, you keep hearing this NIL talk, right? And it's like, I was I was in college kind of when it was just introduced, and
Yep.
then now it's like super big, and agents and all these, there's caps and all these things. So like when I was in it, it was like the wild wild west. There was
No,
no
nothing.
like real legislation. It was like
Yeah.
go get your bag, that sort of stuff. Um but I think, in general, like that's what I'm hearing a lot about when I'm listening to podcasts and just scrolling on TikTok and stuff. Is just kind of this NIL landscape. And I think, from a student athlete development perspective, it's all just about education. Like
Yeah.
whether it's education on what agencies we're deciding to go with, whether it's education on taxes and that brand new Ford truck that you're getting is not for
Mm.
free, really, right?
Yeah.
So just the education piece, I think is just this a little bit more support that's needed, but I think you're seeing a lot of people, step up in that realm
Yeah.
too. So,
So from that perspective, if you what do you think the top two or three things these athletes need to be prepared for when it okay, they're like you said before, you're walking across that stage, it's over
mhm.
to transition into life after the game.
Yeah, I think people in my department, life skills, we talk about resumes and that sort of thing, but um, you know, real world experience, internships,
Hmm.
informational interviews, like interpersonal skills. Like I think off the bat, like that is definitely the top thing that, these phones these days, they take up so much of our time and,
Yeah.
we're texting rather than calling or FaceTiming, like we're not really talking to somebody face to face, right? So I think interpersonal skills is one of the things that every athlete really needs to have. And it's never too early to do an internship. It's never too early to reach out to a professional and ask them how they got to where they are today.
Yeah.
Um, I think confidence is another big one. Like, again, like I still have to check myself about it now. Like I know that I'm equipped to do exactly what I'm doing right now. And I think having the confidence for some of those people that maybe didn't have the identity crisis as early on as I did, and now are kind of facing it as they're coming out, whether they have a job lined up or not, or a professional career, like just having the confidence that whatever is next for them, that they're exactly where they need to be and that they can be where they want to be if they're not, right? So I would say interpersonal skills and confidence are definitely like the two top things that I feel like every athlete needs in order to move on in life, for sure.
Yeah. And I also think they can't be afraid to knock on your door.
Absolutely. That is literally why I named our department at LaSalle what I did. And credit to Scarlet Knights for Life and everything everybody's doing over there, because now at LaSalle it's Explorers for Life. So, in the student athlete development world, it's, everything is plug and play. We're all networking with each other and there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. Every professional that I've ever talked to in this space has been more than willing to share, the logistics onto how they did this networking night or how they did
Yeah.
this financial literacy session. And, talking to Carrie about what should I do? And it was like, you need to brand your department. And I was like, okay, Explorers for Life it is. So,
That's
now we
great.
got fundraising accounts open and, now we just have a name behind what we're doing. And that's developing athletes and supporting them not only while they're there for their 4 or 5 years. I think we're out of the 6 and 7 years now. But for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly what you just said. I've been having my senior graduation one-on-one meetings, and I tell each and every one of them, I don't care if you're going to play professionally, if you're moving back home, whatever you're doing, taking a gap year, like you don't be afraid to call me in this office or whoever may be in this office 10 years from now, So
Yeah.
for sure.
So what's your dream job?
Oh man, it's funny because my athletics director, Ash, he asked me that question in my interview, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I responded to him, I want to do everything. I want to be it all. I want to be the great mom, and I want to have the great career. Um,
Do you want to be an AD?
I used to want to be an AD. I used to, but I don't know. I'm not counting it out. I think, um, like a carry lock would be a great
Yeah,
lifelong position you want to call it for me, like leading an entire unit of people
yeah,
working in student athlete development, or even like a Kate Hickey, like a SWA.
yeah.
You know, I could also see
She's been there
myself.
forever.
Yeah, she just retired.
Oh, she did.
She
Okay.
did. Yeah, she just retired, I think last fall. So,
Okay.
and good for her because yeah, she's
Yeah.
been there for a while
Long
and
time.
so much credit to her and everything
Yeah.
she did for us while I was there. But yeah, I could see myself, you know, being someone like both of
Yeah.
those women, you know.
Those are great role models.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, I've really found a love for the community side of things. You know,
Yeah.
working on the community impact team and being a little bit more community service focused, rather community impact programming
Hmm.
rather than all just student athlete
Yeah.
development. You know, that goes hand in hand with everything that I'm doing for Scott Field Project, and I could also see myself potentially maybe taking over a Scott Field Project one day. So it's currently run and operated by a husband and wife, but you know, like all of us, you know, we all have a million things going on. So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
we're just trying to pay the bills and, you know, keep impacting kids, but no one's really been able to like put their all, you know, into it all the way and
Yeah.
take us, you know, take us to the top. So I think, you know, that also lies in my future too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
we'll see, but
Well,
we got options. Yeah, we
it's
got
awfully
options.
bright. It's awfully bright.
Thank you.
So you've mentioned a number, like I said before, powerful women from your multiple relationships over the years, and you're kind of talking about, how you remember them, how what you learned from them.
Hmm.
So there's going to come a day where you're going to be them, and some young woman's going to turn around and hear your name, and when they do, and they talk about you, how do you want to be remembered by them?
Oh gosh, that's such a loaded question and I
It's
feel
hard at
like
24.
you know, I mean, I really do. Anytime anybody asks me about legacy, I feel like I always just credit where I grew up and just such a pardon me,
Diverse.
diverse
Yeah.
town. Uh, you know, you see a lot where I'm from and a lot of good, but also a lot of bad. And um, you know, I want to be remembered as the person that put Coatesville on the map and that small town kid that did make it out and was able to do something great with their life and not only just as a professional but as a mom too. I think that's really important because depending, you know, on where you are, like not all athletics departments are family oriented, you know, and it's hard to like we talked about, it's hard to have it all, right? Like you're always going to have some sort of sacrifice. So I think the biggest thing for me is just for young women in, gosh, like 20 years when they hopefully talk about me to be like, you know, she showed me when, you know, life through her unexpected challenges, you know, how you just continue to face adversity. And I think that that word identifies just my entire life. I think, you know, it's how are we facing adversity? How are we adapting to adversity? Like that's just kind of been the theme around my life as an athlete, as a friend, a daughter, a mom, all of it.
It's resilience, right? That's your word. That's your word for the
Yeah.
day, resilience.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, Kayla, we talked about a lot, right? We
Yeah.
talked about coming out of high school, going to Rutgers, the impact you made there, stuff you did after Rutgers, now at LaSalle, where you're going, how you want to be remembered. Is there anything we haven't touched on you think we should hit before we wrap it up?
Man, I think for those I guess I'll talk about for a second the young parents out there. It's hard. It's really
Yeah.
hard. You know,
It's hard for the old parents too.
It's true, true. I mean, my dad re decided to redo it when I was 16 years old.
Yeah,
So, and
yeah,
he's like questioning it, like, why did I do this?
yeah,
No, but, nonetheless, they always use the phrase, it takes a village. And, at first having our daughter out in Chicago and being far away from family, we were so in the mindset of like, we can do this. And, frankly, like we don't need the help and all these things. And I think it really put a microscope on our relationship and not only with each other but with our daughter and how we both grew up around our grandparents and how they're not getting any younger and it would be a shame if we didn't give her some of that life too.
yeah.
So just a lot of really hard conversations and a lot of really real conversations at a super young age. Um, I think the earlier you can have them, the better. But yeah, just parenting in general, I think, just it's such a beautiful thing.
Yes,
But yeah, it is really hard. Um, but what has kept me going is, it's everything is only temporary, the teething and the sleepless nights and, all the hard stuff.
yeah,
It's only temporary and she's only going to be this little for so long. And,
yeah.
it would be a shame to not enjoy all that stuff
Well,
with
there's going to come a
family.
day where you wish you had it back,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
And yeah, and I mean, like me and my dad have had that conversation so many times because like, he remarried, had two more kids. They're 9 and 10 now, and he's still some of his, fondest memories are with me as a baby,
Yeah.
and uh he just said, he always made a joke. He was like, I hope you're having a girl because then you'll understand. And I was like, you mean understand how amazing I am?
You know what?
But
It's funny you say that. I don't think this is no disrespect to either side. I don't think mothers understand what it's like to have a girl as much as a father does.
absolutely.
It's just a
I
different vibe, different relationship, different connection.
Listen, my dad had three girls, so he's got it coming for him
Yeah,
still.
yeah,
So, but
great. Well, Kayla, listen, thanks for being on.
for
I
sure.
appreciate your time, sharing your story, which it's only just the beginning, and it's incredible. What
Thank you.
you've done, the impact you have made, and the impact you continue to make at such a young age. And you are already a role model, but you haven't even gotten to the stage or the platform that you will be at one day and impact so many more people. So it's exciting to watch from where I sit and see what you're doing through the social media lens. So
Thank
just
you.
keep doing the great work, and I wish you the best in everything. And parenthood is not easy, but it's the greatest job in the world.
Thank you, Jeff. It was an honor and a pleasure. And hopefully, if you're still in the podcast game in another, 10, 15 years, we can kind of revisit where I
Yeah,
was at and
that's it. Maybe we'll
see
get
where
your
I am
daughter
now.
on then.
Oh my gosh, that would be such a full circle moment.
That will be great. Well, listen, thanks again for being on. And I always end the show by saying, stay strong.
Stay strong, Jeff. Thank you.